The UFC is stacked with dominant champions right now, guys who don't look like they're going to lose anytime soon. We're talking about fighters like Pantoja, Merab, Topuria, Belal, the list goes on. It just really feels like we're in an era where champs are holding on to their belts for a while. But here's the thing, everyone's got their pick for who's going to take them out. Some people are banking on Hamzat to beat Dricus or Shavkat to take out Belal. And yeah, those are solid picks. But in this video, I'm going a different route. I'm looking at the most underrated fighters who could be the one to dethrone the current champion. It might not happen this year, but by next year, don't be surprised if one of these guys end up with gold around their waist. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to go through every weight class because honestly, some champions just look unbeatable right now, and I don't really see anyone taking them out anytime soon. But for the divisions where there's at least a little bit of a path, I wanted to talk about some underrated fighters who I think actually have a real shot at being the champ. These aren't guys that everyone is talking about, but style-wise, skill-wise, I think they match up really well and can pull off the upset. I guess we'll start with the flyweight division, man. And honestly, I think Kai Kara-France is the only guy in the flyweight division who can beat Pantoja, because Kai Kara-France is one of those guys who doesn't always get the respect he deserves, but when you really break it down, he's got a real shot at beating Pantoja. I mean, Pantoja is obviously a beast, relentless pressure, insane grappling, and his durability is insane, but he's not invincible. And Kai has the tools to give him the problem. First of all, takedown defense. People overlook this part of Kai's game, but his wrestling defense is actually really solid. Look how he handled Askarov, who's a way more technical wrestler than Pantoja. He stuffed takedowns, scrambles as well, and never really let Askarov control him for too long. That's huge because Pantoja's whole game relies on getting guys to the ground and drowning them from there. If he can get Kai down consistently, it's gonna force him to strike more, and that's where it gets interesting. Kai's boxing is crisp. He's got some of the best hands in the flyweight division, and he actually hits hard for the weight class. Pantoja, he's tough, but he's also hittable. We've seen guys like Manel Kape, Brandon Royval tag him clean, but they didn't have the composure or fight IQ to really take advantage. Kai is more disciplined than both of them when it comes to striking. So, if he can keep the fight standing, there's a real chance he starts piecing up Pantoja. Another thing to consider is the cardio. Pantoja doesn't necessarily gas out, but he does slow down. He fights at such a high pace early on, and if he doesn't get his grappling going, we've seen him get a little bit less effective in the later rounds. Kai, on the other hand, has shown that he can go hard for 5 rounds, and he fights smarter when it comes to energy management, and if he can survive the early storm, I could see him taking over in the later rounds, especially if Pantoja starts getting desperate. Anyways, with that being said, the next person we have on the list is Deiveson Figueiredo. And look, I know some people might still think of him as a flyweight, but he's a full-fledged bantamweight now, and honestly, he might have one of the best chances of stopping Merab Dvalishvili. First of all, Biggie isn't just powerful, he's a finisher. A lot of guys in the bantamweight division have power, but few have the combinations of precision, explosiveness, and killer instinct that he does. He doesn't just rely on that one big shot, he's more calculated. He picks his moments, and when he hurts somebody, he goes for the kill. That's something that could be huge against Merab, because if you don't have the finishing ability, you're in for a 15 or 25 minutes of hell against a guy who doesn't just stop moving forward. Then there's his grappling. Merab's whole game is built about, relentless takedowns, chain wrestling, and pressure, and cardio. But Biggie isn't some easy target in that department. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and more importantly, he's incredibly good with submissions. We've seen guys stuff a few of Merab's takedowns, but no one has really threatened him off his back. Biggie is the kind of fighter who can turn a bad position into a fight-ending moment in seconds. If Merab gets too comfortable shooting without worrying about counters, he might get caught in something nasty. And let's not forget the striking advantage. Merab has the volume, cardio, and pressure, but he's not a technical striker. He relies on overwhelming guys with activity rather than precision. Figgy, on the other hand, is sharp, fast, and has some of the best counter-striking in the division. If Merab comes in reckless, like he sometimes does, there's a real chance of Figgy can make him pay with something big. Obviously, the biggest question is cardio. Big E's gas tank has been a concern in the past, and if there's one guy who can exploit that, it's Merab. But at bantamweight, he seems more comfortable, and without those brutal flyweight weight cuts, his endurance could be better than people are expecting. If he paces himself well and doesn't go crazy looking for a finish early, he could be one of the toughest puzzles Merab has had to deal with yet. Alright, the next guy we have on the list is in the featherweight division, and this guy is Movsar Evloev, okay? I put him on here because nobody really talks about him, but he's the biggest threat to Ilia Topuria. Ilia already ran through Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski, proving that he's the best in the division. But that doesn't mean he's untouchable. If there's one guy who can give him real problem, it's Movsar. The biggest reason is wrestling. We've seen Ilia look like a monster on the feet, but when he fought Bryce Mitchell, he got taken down and controlled for a good portion of that first round. And Bryce isn't even close to the level of wrestler that Movsar is. Bryce is great on the ground when he gets into like dominant positions, but he doesn't have the same level of chain wrestling, top pressure, and relentless pace that Movsar brings. Movsar doesn't just take guys down once and hopes to hold them down there. He keeps attacking, keeps adjusting, and forces guys into exhausting scrambles. If Bryce was able to get Ilia down and control him, even for a little bit, what's stopping Movsar from doing that from multiple rounds? And that's the thing, Movsar's style isn't about grinding guys down. He doesn't take big risks, he doesn't gas out, and he doesn't put himself in bad positions. Ilia thrives when guys engage in brawls with him, but Movsar isn't going to give him that kind of fight. He'll be smart, mixing striking just enough to set up his takedowns, and consistently keep Ilia on the defensive. Then there's the cardio factor. Movsar has the gas tank to push a crazy pace for 5 rounds, while Ilia has mostly been the guy who dictates the tempo in his fights. What happens when Ilia is the one who's forced to defend takedowns after takedowns, consistently getting back up and dealing with a guy who never lets up? That's where things get interesting. If Movsar can survive the early power shots and drag Ilia into deep waters, it could be a long night for the champ. Obviously, Ilia has the power to change this fight in an instant, and Movsar has to be careful not to get caught. But if there's one guy in the division who has the perfect style to give Topuria problems, it's practically him. With that being said, up next on the list is Joaquin Buckley, man. Here's a hot take. I think he's the guy to beat Belal Muhammad. And I know a lot of people might roll their eyes at this because Belal has looked dominant, has crazy cardio, and doesn't get hit very often. But styles make fights, and if there's someone who can disturb Belal's game and actually make him uncomfortable, I think it's Buckley. First of all, Buckley isn't just powerful, he's explosive in a way that Belal hasn't really had to deal with. Belal is used to guys who fight at the steady pace, who let him dictate the fight. But Buckley's fight in the burst can completely throw him off rhythm. We've seen Belal outwork strikers before, but how does he handle a guy who can close the distance in an instant and land something that's fight ending? Because let's be real, Belal is durable, but he's not untouchable. If Buckley lands clean, it could be a problem. Then there's the wrestling factor. Everyone assumes Belal will just take him down and control him, but Buckley's takedown defense is way better than people give him credit for. He's strong, he's compact, and he's explosive enough to stuff early shots and make Belal work harder than he wants to. Belal thrives on grinding guys down over 5 rounds, but what happens when he has to fight someone who won't just accept being held against the cage or taken down easily? If Buckley forces Belal into a striking, heavy fight, the threat of the knockout is always there. And speaking of cardio, yeah, Belal has a crazy gas tank, but Buckley has been improving in that department too. He's not just some one-round fighter anymore, he's been managing his energy better, fighting smarter, and if he paces himself, he has all the power to make Belal respect him for all 5 rounds. The biggest question is whether he can keep that up against Belal's pressure, but if he can stop the early takedowns and make Belal hesitant, he has a real shot. At the end of the day, Belal is a nightmare matchup for a lot of these guys, but Buckley has the speed, explosiveness, and power to be a real problem. If he can keep it standing and land something big, he could be the one to finally crack the Belal puzzle. And man, here's another hot take. I think he's the guy to beat Dricus du Plessis. And I know that sounds wild because Dricus just keeps proving people wrong. He keeps finding ways to win, but if there's one guy who has the style to break him, it might be Hernandez. First off, the pace and pressure that Hernandez brings is something Dricus has never really had to deal with. Dricus likes to be the guy who's pushing forward, making things ugly, and overwhelming his opponents. But what happens when he's fighting someone who refuses to back down? Fluffy is one of the most relentless fighters at the middleweight division. He doesn't stop moving, doesn't stop attacking, and he can break guys with his work rate alone. Then, there's the grappling. Dricus is tough, no doubt about it, but his defensive wrestling isn't that good. We've seen him get taken down, we've seen guys have their moments against him on the ground, and that's where Hernandez thrives. He's got slick submissions, nasty scrambles, and he doesn't just hold positions. He's consistently looking to advance and smother his opponents. If he can take Dricus down early and make him work, that can change the entire fight. And cardio. Hernandez has one of the best cast takes in the division. Dricus is known for always looking exhausted, but he still finds a way to win and keeps pushing. But he hasn't faced a guy who keeps pushing him for 5 rounds straight without slowing down. Hernandez will test that durability and force Dricus into exchanges where he can't just rely on his toughness. Obviously, Dricus is dangerous, and he's proven time after time that he can dig deep and find a way to win, but Hernandez has that dog in him too, and he's going to fold under pressure if he can mix in the striking, force grappling exchanges, and keep that insane pace. He might be the guy who can finally break Dricus. The last guy we have on the list is Azamat Murzakan. I think he beats Alex Pereira and majority of the people in this division. I know that might sound like a little bit of a stretch to some people, but if you really look at his skill set and how he matches up with Pereira, it makes a lot of sense. First off, Azamat has one thing you need if you're going to beat Pereira: explosiveness, fight-ending power. We've seen Alex take shots before, but he's never fought a guy as compact, explosive, and as fast as Murzakan. Pereira's biggest advantage over most guys is that he's either too slow or hesitant to close the distance properly, but Azamat doesn't have that problem. He's quick, he's burst in with power shots, and he's got that one kind of punch knockout ability that can put anyone out. If he connects clean, it could be lights out for Pereira. Then there's the grappling aspect. We know Pereira has improved his takedown defense, but that doesn't mean he's invincible in that area. Azamat isn't a guy who wrestles a ton, but when he does, he's strong, explosive, and he knows how to get top control. He's not going to shoot sloppy takedowns from far away. He'll use his striking to close the distance, get inside, and make Pereira work in the clinch or against the cage. And if he can mix that in early, it could mess with Pereira's rhythm and take away his ability to set up those perfect shots. With all that being said, that is my list. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.